is bring in Southwest American Indian, per se. Go back before the Anastasi. The Anastasi were the people that were, Anastasi translates to the people. The Anastasi are the ones that were supposed to have done, remember the cliff dwellings and all the beautiful stuff that's out there? But the Indians, the Zuni, the Hopi, the Navajo, they just had the legends of the Anastasi. They didn't know where they went or who they were. When the Anastasi were there, they had the legends of the forerunners that came before them. And the legends say, and I'm going to show you these little books, if you can get your hands on them, do. One's called Easy Field Guide to Rock Art Symbols of the Southwest. Okay? And the other little treasure is called Easy Field Guide to Southwestern Petroglyphs. Petroglyphs are cut, like picked into the stone. Some are painted on, some are picked in. But they're basically the same symbols. And what ties our group of people in the United States to Mesoamerica? Number one, the place of emergence. It looks like a pyramid that you look at from the top down. The legends from our Indians in the Southwest have the same thing. That they came out of a hole in the ground, the original people, and populated the area. There are legends all over Mesoamerica, and we've now found them. There is a massive cave system that everybody's familiar with in our Southwest. Everybody goes down to see the bats and goes up and down in the elevators. That they have found connections, and the caves literally run from Mexico into our Southwest. There are like 8 levels of Exactly. And where the normal person cannot go. If you're an archaeologist, it's full on. My son's getting ready to go there. He's a hydrogeologist who specializes. He's qualified for that kind of stuff too. But they do connect. There are connections between sites in Mexico and our Southwest. And if you go into these sites and look at these things, you can literally translate what's going on. And in a nutshell, just very quickly, Kokopelli, the little guy, this one, the question was asked, Kokopelli is supposed to carry the genetics of the gods. Kokopelli appeared about the time of the Aztec, though, as well. And he carries the Aztec feathers, and he plays the flute. And he is Mesoamerican, we do know that. We do know that he was welcomed anywhere within any of our tribes in the Southwest. And the best thing he could do was to impregnate any of the ladies there, because the children that came of this union were at a higher level than anything else, and they did wonderful things. But Kokopelli goes back even farther. So there was some being that did this from way back and did the same thing. The spiral, their legends say that the gods told them they would have to leave a specific place. And that's the symbol of we have to leave our home, our city, our town. When they got to the city or the town, the square one says we've established a new place. And so when you find the combination of the two, once the new place was established, a runner would go back because you wrote your little symbol on the wall, tell other people, well, we had to leave. The God said we had to leave. And you connected the two. So we had to leave, we followed the direction, and this is where we're now established. These are just quick, fast overviews. But the more you get into this, and then there's definitive ones in here too, but these are the basic ones. You can get your hands on these books. You may find some rather intriguing things, especially when you get into the pictures of, for this group here especially, some of the gods and what they look like with the space helmets on. Okay, here we go. These are spirits. Little spirits. When you start looking at spirits, I had somebody that was with NASA that looked at this and went, geez, that looks just like it. So, I mean, there's some interesting things. But they all come together. There's a nice book called Rock Art of the American Southwest that shows some beautiful, like the paintings. And if you look at this little guy is a god. And if you look at the shape of his head and the size of his eyeballs, I mean, it gets rather intriguing. They all tie together. The ones in South America do the same thing. You will see things in here that look like what you would think of as flying saucers. And then piloting things through the heavens. Again, the God shape too, the strange shaped God that appears way back, that controlled men's lives, that interacted with men, and then they had children. And here's another one in better detail. See the funny shape? It almost looks like a jar. You see the guy in the middle with the big eyeballs? That strange shaped head? That's the flying god, again. And he's interacting with the women and, you know. So, the more you look at this, you may find that the rock art of the Southwest might intrigue you greatly. And I'm going to leave these out here if you want to peek at them. And then there's some pictures if you want to come up and see. Once you look at those, I brought pictures. Here's again the guy, strange little guy. You can literally take them. Here's me climbing up. I'm not on the ground level. I'm up at the roof of the cave. I had to scramble up this stuff to get up there to get these pictures. But you can take literally this book and translate what's on the walls yourself very quickly. And I think you'll be rather intrigued with what it says. Okay? And the other thing that I wanted to bring in, because Michael and I got talking about this, in South America, you're familiar with the plains of Nazca and the pictures of the monkeys and the hummingbirds and all of that stuff. Each of the sites in Mesoamerica are tied to the sites in South America from the air. Okay? In Monte Alba, the place I talked to you about last time that I creeped up the top of this pyramid, it was all wild, and I heard, psst. The little guy came out of the bushes, and they're down at the base of the pyramid. They're saying, come on down. I'm yelling, go away, leave me alone, go away, leave me alone. At the other side, if you ever get a chance to go to Monte Alban, think of a football field, about 3 football fields long. There's a giant pyramid at the end of each one. The one that they've excavated at the far end, think of a shape that goes like this, and down. A building with like a boat, like a prow on the front. From the air, when you go to the various major sites, each one has an arrow shape that leads to the other. Now, what that means, archaeology is going like, and you can't tell unless you're in the air. So they didn't have hot air balloons back then. Yeah.
There was a pictograph in the ground down there. As I recall, the monkey, the tail of the monkey had to spiral around and around and around like the glyphs in the book to say, we went somewhere else.
That's possible. We took the little monkeys with us and bred with them and made them better people. I have no idea, but the monkey, that one monkey that they do down there, the howler does have and the spider monkey does have a curled tail. So whether it's that's an intriguing idea. But the hummingbirds up there, the spiders up there, the whole thing. But when you go from the major sites, if this is Mexico and you're coming down like the Isthmus and then South America's down here, from the air, when you go from one site to another, if you're at Nazca, if you're at Machu Picchu, if you're at Monte Alban, and from the air, there's always a structure that's shaped like an arrow. And the arrow, the point, if you do a straight line, you're going to walk right into another site where that is. And each one points to the other. It's the most amazing thing.
Is there a central site that they won't point at? Or
No, everybody's trying to find that. Everybody's trying. They do converge. Now, a lot of the lines crisscross over Cholula. That's an interesting one. But there is no, as far as we know, arrow in Cholula. It may be on the pyramid, but that's still overgrown. It looks like a wild mountain. Yeah.
Maybe, if they're like different points and they're all kind of intersecting, going like this, maybe in the center of all those lines, there might be something buried that we don't even know about.
That's possible. And they are only getting into this now. I mean, the last 5 years, because now with aerial stuff and with satellites, they're able to, people have done these pictures and now they're starting to triangulate these things and seeing what the heck is this? And is this a freak? Is this an accident? Is this for real? But they do. Now what we're going to do is watch a real quick video. It's part of a larger one. It's called The Mystery of the Skulls, with all these strange looking heads from all around the world. But the part we're going to do is Lloyd. And you'll actually see and hear Lloyd Pye and the Star Child and the little blurb on the Star Child. It's not that long. But I think you'll find it intriguing if you have not seen it as yet. I'm going to get this thing out of the way.
Karen, what's your opinion of these crystal skulls that they found down?
Oh, there's more than skulls. There's a rabbit. There's a long story short, crystal and quartz are very hard to work without fracturing them. It would take a massive amount of time. It takes an extremely experienced person over a bazillion hours to do something like this. There are legends that say, and there's archaeologists going nuts trying to find more of these things, but they've come out of Belize, they've come out of South America, they've come out of, and they're exact. We do know that quartz, just like if you've got a watch that's got a battery in it, that's a quartz battery. Okay, that hum, that and we do know that quartz resonates from the scientific community. So and it has its own energy field. Each piece of quartz, whatever it is, has an energy field.
Have there been any skulls found that look like the Star Child type skull?
No. No, normal human skulls, rabbit, human and rabbit so far, and something that might be a cat, whether it's a panther or whatever, but out of the clear that you're talking about, yeah.
Would the human skulls that are found in different locations, are they identical skulls, or are they truly differently sculpted skulls?
They're done in the same manner, in the same fashion, and they're about the same size. Whether they're dead-on identicals, I can't tell you.
They're not identical. One of them has a hinged jaw, one of them doesn't. Each one are actually slightly different than the next, although they're all human skull looking. But there are a variety of them, and then a whole bunch of other smaller
I
ones.
didn't know about the hinge one. I had no idea about the hinge one.
They took it to London and tested them all. They had them all weighed, et cetera, to find out if they were proper weight and all of that. So there's quite a bit of documentation done on those. Whole nother subject, but definitely this is interesting. Ties in with this for sure.
This will start off with a little glimpse of the strange skulls. Now let's see how well this does.
Okay, we ready?
Yeah.
All right.
Can you see, am I blocking anybody over there?
Skulls were inspired by aliens. He thinks the more radical specimens might indeed be aliens, or at least the product of alien-human interbreeding.
Here's the start.
I think that some of the skulls that we have in the world today, the so-called conehead skulls from Peru, could well be, in my view, will be the skulls of these beings, of some of these superior beings.
Is everybody here back there?
I had been notified by a friend of mine that there was a couple who had something that they wanted to talk to me about. He didn't say what it was, gave me no indication. I just said, fine, sure, no problem. He said, the next time you come into our area, will you let us know so we can meet with you? And I said, yes, and I had a presentation there coming up.
That phone call would radically change the future for paranormal researcher Lloyd Pye. Lloyd agreed to meet the mysterious couple in the anonymity of a hotel lobby. They carried a cardboard box with some truly remarkable contents.
At that point in my speaking career, people were bringing information about Bigfoot because that's one of the areas that I specialized in. So we sat down, they said, we introduced ourselves, they said, did I know what I was going to see? And I said, no. And they said, well, brace yourself, basically.
The box contained two skulls, one obviously human, the other like nothing Lloyd had seen before.
Very unusual. I was just amazed, stunned by the first view I got was the eye sockets. I was very keenly aware of eyes and what eyes are supposed to look like, and these were so far away from normal human eyes, I was instantly enthralled. And then as I examined the rest of the skull and could see the odd shape and the vaguely gray-like shape, how you could imagine a gray alien head wrapped around this skull.
Greys are the archetypal aliens made famous in books and films. But it wasn't just the shape and shallow eyes that captivated Lloyd.
When you hold it in your hands, then you really know that something is unusual about it, because compared to a normal human skull, it weighs half as much. Not only is the weight half, but the bone density is 40% of normal, and that's throughout. And that's uniform, that's all over.
Compared to its companion, the Star Child cranium had an unusually flattened back. This bizarre skull appeared to rest on a slender neck. The cheekbones and chewing muscles were only 1/3 normal size.
This little crack right here.
X-rays of the skull yielded more anomalies.
This is the sinuses of a human. This is the sinus picture for the Star Child, and as you see, there's no sinus there at all, not even a vestigial sinus, not a nub of a sinus, nothing. Very unusual. They say it's not impossible, but cases of it are really extremely hard to come by. So the doctors that did these said, you know, this is very unusual, and you have something here, and you should pursue it.
Lloyd did pursue it, and to his credit, he sought out expert opinions at every opportunity. One of those experts was Vancouver plastic surgeon Ted Robinson.
Well, there are a lot of very remarkable features about the skull. The skull is unlike any skull I've ever seen.
Dr. Robinson specializes in cosmetic facial surgery. In his hands, the skull would reveal more of its secrets.
This skull, which is believed to be that of a 5 to 6-year-old based on the teeth, is 1,550 cc's, which is a huge difference. Also, there's tremendous temporal boxing on the skull, which suggests that the brain was very large in that area, which might suggest a very intelligent being.
Lloyd and his team don't claim that the Star Child is an alien. As these reconstructions show, he believes that the Star Child is a hybrid, the product of sexual union between alien and human.
There are legends from peoples all over the world that say that aliens would come down from the sky, from the heavens, and would impregnate one of the women of a village. And in general, it would be a woman who had had no children, who was barren, and suddenly she's pregnant with one of these beings, and she would be allowed to raise it to the age of 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, and they would come back and get it to do whatever they would do with them.
Not surprisingly, the Star Child hypothesis did not enthrall the wider scientific community.
You know, I appreciate the position that scientists are in. They are part of a fraternity that has a belief system that has parameters that they have to stay within, or they will find themselves excommunicated.
Fortunately, there was one scientist who was not only prepared to settle the argument, he had a range of new tools to do it.
I didn't have any reluctance to get involved. To me, it felt like bone that I was very familiar with. The teeth appeared to be teeth that I'm very familiar with, and I had no reluctance to start the testing procedures.
Aliens aren't just in Egypt. They are everywhere. They are not just for burial, they are for murder. And the biggest one in the world has been hidden in the jungle until now. It only is.
Well, you had a touch of Egypt.
That was a
Yeah,
good movie.
commercial.
That was a good movie. Hopefully this stops quick.
I hope so. I was gonna blow out by a car.
Or tornado.
Yeah.
That was a fair. Oh, sorry. Hang on. Is this it?
Yeah.
Just hold on.
Photographs of the skull. Was it?
Now that we know where it's at.
There you go.
In a small laboratory at the University of British Columbia, Dr. David Sweet prepared to unpack the Star Child for the first time.
Well, my first thoughts when I saw the CT scan, and especially the photographs of the skull, was that it was an alien. In fact, I verbalized that. I said to them, "E.T. call home." I couldn't believe what I was looking at, and that it was partially human, or I just didn't know what to think.
Unusual comments from a mainstream scientist, perhaps. But the tests Dr. Sweet was about to perform promised to determine the parentage of the strange skull with impartial precision.
The impetus for me seeing the skull was that because I have a DNA laboratory that specializes in DNA from bones and teeth, calcified tissues, that we could probably evaluate and assess the DNA content in these remains and find out if there were answers to the questions that I was being asked. Was this skull the result of a human and alien hybridization?
David Sweet directs the Bureau of Legal Dentistry, or BOLD. His laboratory made world headlines in 2000. They identified a killer using genetic material on a half-eaten piece of cheese left at a horrific murder scene. David would apply similar techniques to the Star Child and its mother.
The type of testing that we did is in relation to the accepted forensic methods that are used today. And this laboratory specializes in something called polymerase chain reaction, or PCR methods. And we use another acronym, short tandem repeating units in the DNA, which are referred to as STRs.
Short tandem repeats occur on the chromosomes in a cell's nucleus. They are as individual as fingerprints. More importantly, for the Star Child case, tandem repeats can be used to establish family relationships. The Star Mother immediately yielded results.
We were able to confirm that it was a female skull, and that there were a few profiles, a few peaks on the profile chart that were seen, but not really enough to make any conclusions about paternity or about identity.
Extracting usable DNA from the Star Child proved more frustrating.
We weren't successful initially, and we couldn't understand why. We had attempted all of the regular protocols from which we've been successful in many, many instances in forensic cases before, but we weren't able to get a profile from this particular set of remains that we were dealing with.
If the Star Child had been in acidic soil, its useful DNA might have been destroyed forever. Using PCR, Dr. Sweet tried to amplify the sample again.
I think David was only able to obtain 5 picograms, a picogram being a millionth of a gram. And the more you amplify it, the less accurate your conclusions may be.
There was just enough genetic material to determine that the Star Child's skull was male. It had both X and Y chromosomes in its cells.
Because we use human-specific probes and primers in our DNA testing, it's obvious to me that the X came from a human mother and the Y came from a human father, and therefore this was not a hybrid of a human and an alien.
But those DNA results raise as many questions as they answer. The skulls are human, so how do we account for their bizarre shapes? Instead of foreign DNA, could the people of Kawachi have been afflicted by faulty DNA?
It could be a human deformity, yes. It would be the most unusual of its kind probably since the Elephant Man.
We know from cases like the famous John Merrick
that there are a wide variety of diseases that alter the shape of the human cranium. His head reached an astounding 36 inches in circumference. But the elephant man suffered from Proteus syndrome, a rare condition that has only been recorded 100 times in human history. That makes it an unlikely explanation for a society where everyone had some form of cranial deformity. Fortunately, there are other inherited diseases that may solve the riddle.
When he was born, some doctors came to me and asked me did I want to put him away. The face, he had the face deformity. It was really different. I never seen anything like it before. I wasn't prepared for it. I wasn't even ready for it.
Wilhelmina's son Douglas was born with no nose, 3 kidneys, 12 fingers, and a double heartbeat.
My doctor said it was already, but it's a possibility I could have been a twin. So I'm just living day by day, doing the best that I can, and trying to do the best so I get out of school and go to college, live a normal life like everyone else. So I can succeed in life. You know that I love you, right?
Douglas is now 18. Despite 20 operations, he still suffers from the most dangerous complications.
What the rest of this program was, it showed all different kind of skull malformations and whatever else. And the young boy had cruzones, which is a form that they thought might be what the star child was. And the one doctor, when he said the Y chromosome came from a human male, his one was contaminated DNA also. They didn't have enough to tell what it was from. So this was done way back. Then they took it farther. Then when they took it to Europe for the testing, it came out, and they didn't know what the heck they had. And now it's the final nuclear DNA, the mother's DNA, the mitochondrial, that's always been established. It's the fathers that they're trying to find. So if you go to the starschildproject.com site, as soon as the results come out, you'll see what it is. Boys have been on the phone with me this quick, I'm sure, that it come up, but I haven't heard about it. So it's taken 4 times as long to pull the DNA from this skull as from any other skull. But we do know that the legends all run true in the Mesoamerican area, from our Indians in the Southwest, all the way through Mexico down through South America and other parts of the world, that it's these flying gods that come and do all of this stuff, and the legends all run true. So if you're intrigued with the Star Child, the address that I gave you for Lloyd is something to check on. And one thing, like I talked to Michael about this, your group might want to get that advanced movie, which is 2.5 hours, on the Star Child, the breakdown of the Star Child and the whole other thing. And that might be something well worth having. You can make copies of or whatever, but that takes it into super detail. I would basically today have given you a kindergarten level of what you're coming up with. So where this fellow said, oh yeah, the father is a human, that part was wrong. And that's been changed. But at least you got to see Lloyd talk, and you got to see the skull itself.
These don't look like grays, though.
Pardon?
They don't look like grays at all.
I have too close, right?
But, yeah.
Vera May-
The question I was going to ask you is still related to what you're talking about now. I think this might be one of the most important questions. Okay. You're requesting, suggesting that if people are really interested, they, maybe contribute, support this somehow. My question is
follow it. Just follow it.
Okay, so, but the point is if and when they do finally find an evidence, they get enough testing done to where they do come up.
They have to get enough alleles, those little dots. They
Right.
have to get enough alleles to find out what it is.
Right, the point is once they get that, what is this organization's plans to do with that?
Oh,
2 weeks.
okay.
Extensively.
Well, they're sitting quiet. What they're trying to find out, if it comes up that it is a non-human father, then the sky blows off. Then there's six, I think, at least 6 positions. There are a lot of professionals out there, extremely interested and involved in this, whose names can't be used at this point because it turns out it's not going to be crucified, literally. And I think a lot of things are going to happen rapid fire. Because it's been out in the public for so long, I don't think it's something where, like somebody was telling me during break, that people dressed in black come in and snitch in front of you and take it away. It's too well known at this point, like the other people were talking about Roswell. But they're hesitant to say which way. It will go on display, it will go on tour. There'll be more forays down into Mexico, a lot more things will be happening, but they have to find out what the definitive answer is. It may come back human. And then, it's like, then where are you? But what they've gotten so far, they've gotten a few small little allele things, and what they've gotten is non-recognizable.
What I just going to interject last on that same thing is, at least I'm somewhat impressed and relieved that when, in that one group, the Raelian group and all that thing with the so-called, well, let's put it this way, they did have something on the news that they were completely open with it, and they publicized it through the whole networks, the TV networks. And they did give the Raelian group a chance. They said, hey, you say you have this evidence of a child born with, alien genetics.
Oh, no, I know what you're talking about.
And they gave them a chance. They never came through with it, so that kind of made it look bad on some of the groups that are into this, which, none of us may say we're connected to that. But the fact of it is, my point is, at least the media seemed to be open-minded to it, and they said, look, we're open-minded on this. You give us some proof, and we'll believe you. He never did, but at least if this group is the same kind of thing, maybe for once we will actually finally get something that gives credit to this.
Yeah, and the other thing I was going to bring in too, because I'm looking at the time, the bracelet that I'm wearing around my wrist right here, these particular stones that are on this bracelet are basically you would think of as the holy stones from all the cultures that I'm talking about. And anywhere in the world that the flying gods appear, the gods from the skies, the ones that come and teach astronomy, math, and all the things. For some reason, we know that the stones that are here and sitting on this bracelet are their stones. Like we have birthstones. April is a diamond, and May is an emerald, and this one's a pearl, and whatever. But down through history, these particular stones that sit on this bracelet represent everything that we've been talking about today. And for the Egyptians, it's lapis, the blue stone. For our southwest, it's the various forms of turquoise. For Mesoamerica, it's turquoise and jade, or how to eat that jade. And every once in a while, for a very specific god, see the little orange one? The coral or the carnelian or the stone that looks that color. So basically, this bracelet is a combination of all of these put together.
How about India?
Pardon?
How about India?
India, or
India.
India?
Yes,
Hindu India, that's a whole different thing.
I mean, they got legends that go back 10,000
Oh,
years.
and I can tie those in. Well, if you want to get really hairy, if you wanted to go into, say, our Bible, per se, biblical archaeology, there are legends of a person. There was a setup back in ancient times would say Christ walked the earth as a child, where that people, no matter how poor or how wealthy, if the child showed great promise and had great intelligence, were able to go off to these schools and train like we would be sent from kindergarten to high school, and trained in all these various different subjects. And there are legends and this is when you bring this up, in India, of a person who would answer to what we would know as Christ's description, being there, being taught in the schools there. Wasn't just in the Holy Lands, per se. India had these two. The really advanced ones went there. That this person from what we would think of as the Holy Lands came as a child, was taught and passed, went beyond any teacher that was there, and then returned to his home. That's recorded. Who it was, we don't know. There's descriptions of the person. And he came from the area, but that's as much as I can tie in.
Karen, what I was referring to was in the ancient Hindu scripts, there's all kinds of stories about which could have been flying machines? Are you
Absolutely, that's simple, yeah, that goes way back, and last week, the last time I was here, I touched on it. If you really wanna get into that, get into a fellow by the name of James Churchward, C-H-U-R-C,
Read several of those many years ago.
and Mew.
The lost
and-
continents of view and all that.
Yeah, and the strange part is, I got into that and started reading it, and came in from the archaeological viewpoint. And what he says in those books, every archaeological site that you have either faces one way or another, okay? And usually it's either east or west, the rising sun or the setting sun. According to Churchward, that wherever they were colonized from, let's say that Mew was in the Pacific, supposedly is what it is, and Atlantis is in the Atlantic. All right. If the people colonized and went to the west, then the people would face east, and just the reverse, where the things were set up, where the people came from originally. But if you want to get into that ties sort of both of them together. The Churchward book on Mew, and there's like 3 of them, because that's a sort of it's an archaeological thing too that you want to get into because it gives different references. And it talks about the pyramids and the Greek temples that are in the Pacific that are actually there. A lot of them are underwater, but they're there. You know, how the heck did they get there? And about the continents raising and collapsing and separated by the 2 rivers and the destruction, and then you get to the Atlantean thing. And you get back into Egypt, and the legends of Osiris, Horus, and the whole shot basically say that they were like Atlanteans.